Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I am super excited to welcome you all to today's finale of the Atlantic Health Impact Investment Challenge. And I am Caroline. I'm co-CEO of Spring, and I have the absolute pleasure of guiding us through this event. I would love to know who's in this room, especially as I can't see all your faces. So I would really welcome you to share in the chat your name, the organization if you're representing one, and also context. Are you an entrepreneur, investor, an ecosystem partner? I'd love to know. So please do share more in the chat at the bottom of your screen. So I'm based in Vancouver, and this is my home. But as we are celebrating and recognizing entrepreneurs, partners, and investors from Atlantic Canada today, many of you from Halifax, I'd like to recognize and honor the traditional unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq and the Mi'kmaq nations. Please also do share where you're from and who the guardians of the lands that you're living on are. And a really powerful Indigenous philosophy that I've learned since coming to Canada 5 years ago is the 7 generations principle, which I absolutely love. And it's around thinking of the 7th generation coming after you in how you talk, your work, your actions, and also to remember the seven generations who came before you. And I'm honored to be among you all here today in support of entrepreneurs doing just that, as they challenge the status quo of healthcare provision to date, and they build solutions that are supporting the health and well-being of current and future generations. So the agenda for this event, first of all, today is a culmination and celebration of a huge amount of work by innovative entrepreneurs, impact-driven investors, and a collaboration of partners. So I'd like to welcome and thank all of you. We'll start by sharing a bit of context on who those partners are behind the scenes, and also the journey that both the entrepreneurs and investors have been on over the past few months. We'll then go into pitches and question and answer 5 minutes from each of the top 5 ventures. And then the cohort of investors will go off to a separate room, deliberate on who they'll be collectively investing in, whilst I will be in conversation with 2 leaders in healthcare and impact investing ecosystem across Canada. That'll be Luke Sheen from Halo Health and Brenda Irwin from Relentless Ventures. And then as the investors trickle back into the room, we'll be announcing both a People's Choice Award as well as Investors' Choice of who they're going to be investing their combined money into. So first, I would like to welcome up Dorothy Spence to share more around her work, Imaginal Ventures, and the incredible activities that have been happening behind the scenes.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. We're really excited to be here at this finale event. It's a culmination of a year of work. And as Caroline said, we have been working with our partners in order to be able to showcase and celebrate all of the founders and entrepreneurs who have participated. So I am the founder and CEO of Imaginal Ventures, and as you can see, there's these things that labels or claims of really some of my background. But we love to support these founders and businesses who are changing the world, and that's in the ethos and the reason why we love to put partners together and do what seems to be pretty impossible tasks. So over a year ago, through the sponsorship of the Nova Scotia Health Innovation Hub, we put together this program with Spring and also with Halo Health. So I do want to acknowledge those partners and thank you very much for believing in us and believing in the founders who we've been supporting for this last year. We started off, like I said, a year ago, working with the networks and talking to a number of founders who had health solutions to see if this program was a fit for where they were in the business. Through that process, we were able to whittle it down to 16 amazing companies. And this is a celebration of these founders as well as these companies in the ecosystem. So these are founders who have a vision of something that they want to change. They feel compelled to do this thing called entrepreneurship in order to make a change that they think is significant and important. And healthcare in particular is really focused on impact. So not only is it an impact for these businesses, but in this process, they're contributing to this extremely important mission of continuing to transform our healthcare delivery system. And as we know, healthcare delivery systems globally are really in the throes of significant transformation. So not only is this is this challenge and the scale up and the investment readiness program that these founders have been through with all the partners important for the transformation of the healthcare delivery system, it's also important for our local economy. As these businesses, these high growth, high potential businesses continue to grow and scale, it is estimated that in 5 years' time, that 50% of the economic output from these small and medium-sized businesses will come from these high growth companies. So paying attention to these companies, to the founders, to the leaders, supporting them in any way possible with these powerful networks, like we demonstrated in this challenge, bringing together Spring from Vancouver, Halo Health, who has a national physician-led network, and all the other experts and coaches that have come in to support the entrepreneurs as they scale their impact, has been really such an honor to watch and to participate in. And I just want to, there's just one keeping item that I'd like to do before I pass the mantle back over to Caroline. I just want to, there's a disclaimer that I'm going to be presenting on behalf of Nova Scotia Health. So Nova Scotia Health is not an investor in this special purpose vehicle and is not recommending or advising on the form of investment. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And once again, thank you to the Nova Scotia Innovation Hub for supporting our vision of bringing these groups together to support the founders in helping to transform the system.
Thank you so much, Dorothy, for that intro, and just absolutely echoing that this has been a collaboration of incredible partners across the country. And I'd just like to take a moment to share a bit more context around Spring and the team's work as part of this program and this, as Dorothy mentions, years worth of work. So Spring exists to change the world through innovation. And how we do that and approach that is by supporting impact-driven founders, just like the ones you'll hear from tonight, who have innovative ideas and help them understand and build the right capital roadmap for their business that's right-sized for their business model and aspirations. And we equip those founders to be investment ready, connecting them to a community of values-aligned funders and investors. Again, the people in the room tonight. And through this specific Impact Investment Challenge model, we support a community of both new as well as experienced investors, accredited or not, to really democratize access and involvement in this capital and help people understand what it means to be an angel investor and put that into practice through this real-time relationship building and due diligence process that culminates in this evening. So today, 11 investors will be selecting one venture to invest in. But all 5 of the founders that you'll hear from tonight have built really meaningful relationships and networks to set them up for future success and raises. And we're excited to support all of them on their journeys ahead. And as Dorothy mentioned, it's not purely about capital or about financial capital. It's also around the social and cultural capital you can bring. So I look forward to bringing that back around at the end to understand how can each of you support these incredible ventures with more than your money, but with your social and cultural capital as well. a few more thank yous. So as part of this process, the investors and entrepreneurs have been supported with coaches along the way. So thank you so much for your participation and sharing your expertise and guidance along the way. Jeff, Tala, Shoba, Chris, and Lee. We really appreciate you and could not have done this without you. Thank you. And sponsors. So in addition to the incredible program partners that Dorothy mentioned, we have long-standing collaborative relationships with DLA Piper and Inc. And thank you both for the bonus sessions and expertise that you've brought to both the entrepreneurs and investors on this journey. M&P, Genis, and Carl Jung. Hats off to all of you, long-standing partners, as I mentioned, and just absolutely values-aligned champions of the work that we're all doing in the ecosystem. And now we'll hear from the top 5, the finalists. And we'll be hearing from 5 inspiring leaders about the problems that their healthcare ventures are solving and the innovative ways in which they're doing so. We'll watch their 5-minute pitches and then have their leaders up with me for 5 minutes of questions. So in order of show, we're going to have Emma, followed by Decel Technologies, Pragmaclin Research, Neocare, and Mimosa Diagnostics. Whilst these pitches are happening, I have 2 asks of you. So the first is, please do share your questions for the founders using the question and answer tool, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And also, I'd love you to note down your favorite, as we will be asking for a people's choice vote from everyone who's outside the investor cohort. Okay. So next, we'll have the presentation from Emma, and then we'll be chatting to Lana Last, the CEO.
So I'm Lana Last, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Emma. We're here to provide pelvic pain relief solutions. For 25 years, I've had debilitating period and pelvic pain and went through the standard care of treatment, which are NSAIDs, hormonal birth control, and opioids. But as we know, all 3 options, and the only 3 options to manage this type of pain, have serious side effects like stomach ulcers, what I developed, kidney failure, blood clots, TIA, which I also developed on birth control, and finally addiction and death with opioids. At Emma, our team is looking to create a new category of painkiller without any side effects. Please meet our Emma team. Melanie Terborg is our co-founder and COO. She has a background in cellular biology, as well as starting and exiting biotech startups. Our third co-founder, Dr. Mali Maybod, has her PhD in drug discovery and delivery and specializes in making drugs really sticky in the mouth and in the vagina. And finally, Dr. Janester Wilson King, our board-certified gynecologist, as well as our amazing team of advisors. 109 million North American women experience the evil triplets: chronic pelvic pain, period pain, and IC or bladder pain. And if you have one, you normally experience the other 2 as well. Also, painful sex. Yet this market is completely untapped when it comes to pain management. So we're creating a new category of painkiller using OV Relief. OV Relief is our first product to market that contains CBD and CBG in the form of a vaginal and rectal suppository. It has no side effects and it's completely scientifically backed. In fact, we're the only scientifically backed cannabis product for women's health on the market. And we know this because we've done in vitro and in vivo studies telling us how and why we're better than our competitors. And we've also filed patents for our product, one of the only cannabis companies. As I said, our market size is fairly massive, so we're concentrating on a big beachhead of 30 million women. Our goal is to get our first 100,000 customers, and we know we can do this because 56% of women already use CBD to manage some type of pain. But how are we capturing these customers? We use our affiliates, pelvic floor physios. There are 10,000 pelvic floor physios in the US that we work with. And so far, we've made $7,000 worth of sales via these affiliates without any advertising or marketing whatsoever. And so this year, we're going to be expanding to gain more traction of those 10,000 physios. We've also tried our online retailers, Rhythm, Unfabled, Rescripted, and Orchid, which has been great at giving us a little boost into people's feeds. We've also been accepted into Kroger's, but that's something that we're putting on pause until we know for sure our customers shop at these major retailers. Our business model is fairly simple. We have a subscription of 5 suppositories for $29 USD, as well as our 2-pack or 10 suppositories for $69 USD. And finally, our one-time purchase for $35 USD. Our 2 best sellers are our subscription and our 2-pack suppositories because, again, 98% of our customers experience the evil triplets, including endometriosis. All of our competitors use the exact same formulation as each other. There has been no innovation with them whatsoever. We use isolate, so we know exactly how much CBD and CBG are going into our suppository, and we're water soluble. So we use no oil, meaning we maintain the vaginal pH levels, whereas our competitors push it into 7, which can cause UTIs, BV, and yeast infection. And finally, people can use condoms when they experience painful sex using our product, whereas our competitors can't offer that advantage. As I mentioned, we've already taken out 2 patents and intend to explore more. And finally, we're looking to raise $500,000 to market and sell Ovi and our new product coming out in May, our oral capsules. Marketing will be spent on hiring a salesperson, as well as really getting to those conferences and trade shows for our PTs. Of course, boosting our inventory and filing more patents. So please join us to empower women to manage their pain safely and effectively. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Lana, for your work. That is, I really appreciate you going not just from your own lived experience, but then actually into action and creating such an incredible solution. So I have a couple of questions, and also I'd encourage all of you with questions to pop that in the Q&A box at the bottom so we can have hear from Lana. And so the first one from me, I would love to understand more about your patent status. So first of all, congratulations. That sounds incredible that you have 2. Oh, and Melanie, thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. And so I'd love to understand a bit more about your patent status and roadmap ahead. You mentioned that you had at least 1 more in the wings.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can hear me okay? Okay, awesome. So we actually just filed our patents last month, and so that's been really great. So we've done that. We have 1 more that we're doing in the works. That's for a biotech line that we're hoping to go through with the FDA with. So that one we're working on right now.
And you mentioned FDA, and I can imagine this is fraught with a lot of regulatory questions and challenges along the way in multiple markets. So I'd love to understand how you're approaching that, and both in Canada and beyond.
So what I've been pitching is our consumer line that's currently on the market, and we are considered an FDA cosmetic. And so what that means is anyone can go into their kitchen and make eye cream or a vaginal suppository and put it on the market. There are no regulations there to manage that. We decided that we wanted to create regulations as though we were going through the FDA so that we could prove we have a product that's safe and efficacious. And that's our consumer line. We then have a biotech formulation that we would then try to pursue through the FDA. That would be considered a drug, but that's something that we're just filing the patents for as a longer term vision and dream.
Thank you. And then there's one question from the chat, which is whether you've considered using a dissolving film for drug delivery.
Yeah, actually, we have considered doing that. Without giving away too much, the molecules, it's a very difficult thing to do in the vagina, especially during flow, but it's something that we talked about originally before suppositories. So yes, we have looked at that, and we can chat more about that with that person later.
And I love the description that you had in terms of your routes to market, pelvic floor clinics and channels like that. That's super smart. Can you bring to life a bit more around your plans for different go-to-market strategies and also your sort of priority order of those?
Yeah, so our first order of priority are the pelvic floor physiotherapists. They're highly educated and trained and work with patients all of the time who suffer from a huge range of pelvic pain, including like dyspareunia, painful sex. And so we're actually able to target more people and find product market fit through them. As I think I mentioned in my pitch, there are 10,000 PTs who specialize in pelvic floor therapy in the US. And so right now we're just targeting people who own their own clinics because that's the easiest barrier to entry, and then major facilities that work within certain states where there are way more PTs that we can have access to. After that, we'll be targeting naturopaths as a second next step. Because very similar, highly educated, and work again with a lot of different kind of women's health dysfunction. Yeah.
And I'd love to understand a bit more, Melanie, about your journey as co-founders and what that dynamic looks like as well.
Oh, sure. Well, I had a journey. I was in a skydiving accident when I was in my first year of university. So I had the lovely experience of being in chronic pain. And so I took a lot of NSAIDs and also developed gastrointestinal issues. And then I also suffer from IC, which is bladder pain. And my second degree is a master's degree in women's studies. And so when the lab that I was working in out at UBC, Helen Burt's lab, her sort of right-hand man there, John Jackson, said that Lana was looking for co-founders. I jumped at the opportunity to join. And Dr. Mally Mybald had also worked in John's lab, so I knew her. And it seemed like a natural fit for all of us to work together.
Yeah, we got lucky.
That's amazing. And being a co myself, like I just really appreciate that dynamic of having someone to bounce ideas off, share different perspectives and
Exactly.
not to go it solo. So I love that you have that relationship as well.
Rock.
Yeah, I'd love to understand how you're thinking about measuring your impact.
Mhm.
Appreciate sort of early stages. It's often feels quite onerous sometimes to think about, okay, measuring that as well as all the things that you're doing. But what are your approaches so far? And then vision for, I suppose, the next year of measuring your impact?
Yeah, really great question. So, how we've been measuring impact so far is really based through science. And so, we've done in vitro studies looking at our suppository in a test tube against our competitors, knowing how and why we're better. So, that is one form of impact, right? Just as another would be doing two observational trials, one with normal period pain and the other with endometriosis, where we had fantastic results, 80% efficacy for primary dysmenorrhea, and 85% had knocked down 3 points on the 1 to 10 scale for endometriosis. So through science, that's really how we've been looking at impact. But as we've been developing, we've also done things like I applied for a petition through the House of Commons for paid menstrual leave here in Canada to really advocate for that and start creating education around things like endometriosis or why we should have paid menstrual leave, and look at that impact through Emma and the way that we can work with communities in educating people around menstruation and pelvic pain. So as we're starting to move on in our company, we're trying to figure out what does impact mean and look like for us versus what it looks like for investors. For us, it's really grassroots. So we work with two nonprofits in the US, one called Tight Lipped, which focuses on vaginismus and trying, again, they use science as a form of impact. And so we work with them trying to look at okay, how can we, make an impact on a diverse community and make our product really accessible? Well, we're applying for HSA, right? So people have access to our product. Whereas in the nonprofit we work with in New York called Peach Corps, that is more political. So we work with them doing the same thing, creating menstrual leave, paid menstrual leave for healthcare workers and teachers in New York City, as well as like working on educating people on endometriosis and pelvic pain and all of the kind of women's health dysfunctions. So for us, our impact, yeah, it really stems from more action than I would say numbers, but we're learning to track that so that people can digest that right now. So we're just starting out to figure out how we work within that. And then as a queer founder myself, we work very closely with the LGBTQ plus community, mostly in New York and now at Michigan State University, educating people on the different, like how to advocate for yourself if you have pain at a doctor's office and you identify as something other than just female.
I love that and just really respect your approach there. It sounds so authentic and aligned also. It's so aligned with your business model. And I also love how you're using your voice and your confidence to speak up, because a lot of people suffering from this, as you say, either won't be taken seriously or seriously enough, or won't have the confidence to share what they're going through. So thank you for making this a more mainstream conversation and addressing that head on, and then using different ways to amplify your voice across North America and beyond. Is there anything that you wanted to say before saying goodbye and I
Yes.
say good luck?
Definitely. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are happy to have been accepted into two kind of life sciences accelerators, one called Conquer Detroit with the Michigan State University. So we're going to be working with the Henry Ford Lab, who actually created the cancer drugs that saved Lance Armstrong's life. We're going to be working with them and Boston IVF on looking at fertility pain and something that we can manage. And then the second one is LifeX, based out of the University of Pittsburgh. And so we're super excited to be able to push forward in the US. So yeah, thank you so much.
That's huge. Congratulations. And
Thank
thank you. We'll see you afterwards. Next, we will be hearing from Decell Technology and Sean.
Picture this. Every 20 seconds, someone living with diabetes loses a limb to a wound that won't heal. It's a staggering statistic. And that's why we're on a mission to impact these people with our solutions at Decell Technologies. I'm Sean Margaret, CEO of Decell Technologies, and I'm here to introduce you to a game changer in healthcare. Did you know that a quarter of all diabetics will need treatment for lower limb ulcer? And despite what you might think, the current standard of care is only about 50% effective at healing these wounds. The primary culprit, inflammation. Our body's natural defenses are actually hindering the healing process. That's where DermGen comes in. It's a breakthrough product that interrupts inflammation, resets the wound environment, and speeds up healing. Think of it as a scaffold for new tissue growth without the cells. We've patented both the process and the product itself, giving us a strong position in the market. Our results speak for themselves. We've treated more than 90 patients in real-world settings with an impressive effectiveness of over 80%. Not only does DermGen heal wounds faster, but it also reduces the risk of infection and cuts healthcare costs. Plus, it's easy to ship, store, and apply, making life easier for clinicians and patients alike. We're not just talking the talk. We've got the patents, regulatory approvals, and endorsements from key opinion leaders. Even the cost of treating diabetic foot ulcers with DermGen is half the current standard of care. And with partnerships in place for product reimbursement, we're poised for even greater success. Starting in the right place is crucial, which is why we've strategically focused on 4 key locations within Canada, where innovation thrives in a healthcare ecosystem. In Alberta, since bringing on board our clinical field specialists last October, we've made significant progress. Currently, 5 clinics are evaluating DermGen with remarkable results. These clinics, led by clinical champions, are generating the evidence needed for approval from the Alberta Health Services Reimbursement Committee, which serves as a gateway for market entry. Additionally, we formed a partnership with the First Nations Blood Tribe to conduct a randomized control study involving 125 patients, aiming to address non-healing diabetic foot ulcers within their community. Moving to Ontario, we're seeing equally promising outcomes. 8 clinics have evaluated DermGen and have been astounded by the results. Notably, the University Health Network is sponsoring an evaluation at the Toronto General Hospital, spearheaded by Dr. Graham Roche-Nagel, Chief of Vascular Surgery. Moreover, the Ontario Ministry of Health is backing a quality improvement initiative in Northwestern Ontario, showcasing the tangible benefits of DermGen. Here at home, the Nova Scotia Health Innovation Hub and Can Health are collaborating with us in a test and try project to treat patients with non-healing wounds, indicating the widespread interest and potential impact of our product. Finally, in Charlottetown, PEI, the QE2 hospital didn't hesitate to purchase our product after being impressed by the results showcased in our webinar hosted by Mohawk MedBuy. This decision highlights the immediate recognition and validation of our value proposition, reinforcing the effectiveness of DermGen. These successes underscore the growing momentum and acceptance of our product within diverse healthcare settings across Canada, paving the way for broader adoption and market penetration. Our strategic approach in these key regions demonstrate our ability to deliver tangible results and make meaningful impact in the healthcare landscape. But we're not stopping there. We're raising $800,000 to ramp up clinical adoption, boost product awareness, and drive sales across Canada. With a diverse and talented team and a clear strategy, we're ready to make a real difference in the lives of those living with chronic wounds. Every minute counts. Every 20 seconds, another person loses a limb. But with DermGen, we have the technology, the drive, and the passion to change that. Are you ready to join us? Let's make a difference together. Thank you.
Wow. It's a good thing that my camera was off. I hope no one else was squeamish. That was incredible. Every 20 seconds, someone loses a limb. Sean, thank you so much for joining and for your presentation. That was hugely impactful.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I have many questions. One of which is I'd love to understand your focusing on diabetes relating to foot ulcers. Is there a broader application of this technology in a future roadmap?
Yes, absolutely. So our core D-cell technology, we've applied to a variety of different tissues. So there's their allograft tissues, so nerves, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, etc. We selected skin primarily because it's a relatively easy matrix and platform for us to do first. And again, this was years ago when we did our initial proof of concepts. In particular, looking at non-healing wounds such as diabetic foot ulcers, it's primarily because there's really an unmet need there. And so we really wanted to capture a market where there was a substantive unmet need, and we could make a large difference for these patients suffering with these non-healing wounds.
Makes sense. And then, so maybe it makes sense also to talk through your IP portfolio and how you're going about sort of having that point of difference in the market and protecting it.
So our IP strategy was, again, we patented the process, but we also took another angle where we actually defined the composition of matter, which for those that don't appreciate IP, what that means is we really defined what our product characteristics look like. And the importance of that is that it helps to, really define what decellularization looks like and what those attributes look like from a clinical setting as well.
And I'd also love people to ask their questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of the page. Otherwise, you're just going to get what I'm interested in. I'd love to understand, what are the other investors and participants in the room intrigued to hear more about. But in the meantime, and just as I asked the team at Emma around impact measurement, obviously you have huge innate impact, and I'd love to understand how you're going about measuring that and thinking about that over time.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's funny because part of what started our journey on this was my work in deceased donation and seeing, in tissue banking, and really seeing the underutilization of the gift that is provided in deceased donation. And so when I reached out to Dr. Paul Gratzer, the co-founder and inventor of the technology, who was also my thesis supervisor when I was at grad school, so I was familiar with his research. We collaborated with the idea that we could really produce something to take, really at this stage, it was really to take waste streams from the donation programs and turn them into a viable product and clinical application. And so that kind of, dovetailed into a much larger picture where we were able now to look at a technology that was really truly having an impact on non-healing wounds. And as we got into clinical applications with our first feasibility study, that really generated really gave us that additional boost, because we saw patients that were in some cases suffering with an open wound for years, seeing it closed within 4 weeks. And you can just imagine the impact that has on patients. And so that's really been a significant impact, is just turning that. Another big issue with us is that often these unhealed wounds will lead to lower limb amputations. And so, our ability to impact and reduce lower limb amputations is critical, because as patients, the mortality rate increases with the number of amputations, et cetera. And so really it's about preventing the loss of limb and then therefore saving lives.
And can you remind me and remind us of the scale of this issue and this unmet need across Canada and maybe even internationally?
Well, so if we focus on Canada, there's over 60,000 patients that annually that are suffering with a diabetic foot ulcer. So it's a large number of patients that in Canada that are suffering from this, and with only half of them really receiving any form of treatment with standard of care. That's a large number of Canadians, of course, that are and a large portion of these wounds, they're not healing, they're open, they lead to infection, there's repeat, and they get caught in that cyclic process of infection being treated by infection, and then so that circular motion. So they really never return to any kind of normalized lifestyle.
And I do see one question in the chat. First, before I ask you more about your deal terms and how much you're raising, can you also talk through your path to commercialization? And by the way, congratulations on the purchase agreement that you already have in place in PEI.
So our approach to the market, we really selected in geographies that were presented in the pitch, was really to highlight these are provinces that have a pathway for innovative healthcare systems to come into the system, and so that was part. So we have a number of criteria that we looked at. The other is, of course, where we can look for key opinion leaders in this space. So, for example, Dr. Roche-Nagel at Toronto General, he's chief of surgery there. He's a vascular surgeon, and finding people that got very excited very early on and were champions for DermGen, wanted to utilize it and bring it into their networks was really important as well. And then the other component, really, as we go into the various regions, is to bring in nurses, wound care nurses who have had experience and practice in these regions. They understand the network, they understand the mechanics of both from a clinical perspective, but also the mechanics of the healthcare system, which in Canada, as we all know, is complex. And so that's a huge advantage to us as well. So that's been part of our strategy.
Amazing. Definitely makes sense to go for those early adopters and innovators first. And so someone has asked about the deal terms. So I don't know, to whatever extent you're comfortable sharing right now, if you could recap how much you're raising and any of the terms that are public knowledge.
Yeah, so we're raising $800,000, which is in part different from what 3 weeks ago when we had our investors looking at that, and I'll speak to that in a second. But our deal terms are, we're providing common shares, and I see the other question. So speaking to those common shares, we have raised $125,000 of the 800 so far. So that's where we're ramping things up now with this innovation approach. And sorry, I'm looking at the questions as well, so I'm reading ahead. And so that's where we're at with the investment terms.
Fantastic. And just to add a note on that, and we'll mention more at the end, but as part of this investment tonight and future opportunities to pitch to other angel networks, we'll obviously share with this wider network. And if you are selected as a winner, that SPV is also open for others to get involved in.
All right, thank you.
Dan asked a question around your exit strategy. So do you have already a plan and acquire in mind?
We've had some initial conversations with some of the larger wound care companies that are multinational, and so we have a pretty good understanding of what they're looking for. So to make us a good strong company for them to consider, and a large part of that, of course, is looking at large wound care companies where our product and technology is a complement to their already pre-existing wound care portfolio.
Wonderful. And last one, someone's wanting to get into the detail on the ingredients and the dressing, how the dressing actually works.
Oh, the ingredients. Well, the ingredients is really, again, proprietary, but we apply it's promote. We utilize a chemical formulations that are based on 25 years of research. So it sounds simplistic, but there's a lot that Paul put into this when he developed it. One of the differentiating factors is that we're able to retain the scaffold without damaging it and eliminate all the cells. So there's that's really important, as well as we don't irradiate or use any kind of high energy to sterilize our tissue. So we're really providing a very natural, natural product that way.
Fantastic. And final question around expansion plans, especially whether there's any plans for the US or Europe.
Right. So so I'll start with Europe. So we have a partner in Europe who we've been working with. They're a national agency in Germany. And we've been working with them for a number of years with our submissions to the regulatory agency in Germany. And they've built a brand new facility in Germany to house our manufacturing. So they would be a licensed manufacturer in Germany and would allow us to access the EU. For the US, we're well positioned, I think, to enter the US. There's been some changes in the reimbursement models in the US. As recently as 2 weeks ago, there was a large conference in the US to talk about wound care and in particular biological versus synthetic utilizations and reimbursement codes. So we're still developing the strategy for the US, but this is a large part of that.
Fantastic. And we're at time. I know there's another question, so
Yep.
maybe you want to take that away to answer in the chat separately.
Sure,
I
I will
definitely
do.
say you're the first person I've met in deceased donations. So it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing and best of luck this
My
evening.
pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Next up, we are going to hear from Craig McClinn. So Bronwyn Bridges will be joining us after we watch their pitch video.
Hi there, my name is Bronwyn Bridges and I am the CEO and co-founder of Craig McClinn. But before I tell you where Craig McClinn is today, I'd like to introduce you to Gord. He was an avid runner his entire life, until his 50s where he noticed gait and slowness occurring. He brushed it off as age-related symptoms, as sadly so many people do, to avoid the emergency room, until a few years later he started to notice he was having trouble with his balance and having trouble shaving in the morning. When he finally went to go seek help, he was told it could be a 1 to 2 year wait time to see a neurologist. That wait time in Newfoundland and Labrador now exceeds 4 years in some areas. For Parkinson's patients, the initial symptoms look completely different depending on the individual. A lot of the things that we typically notice are tremor, slowness, or issues with our speech. However, by the time that physical symptoms become present, the patient has likely had these symptoms for several years prior. But being able to get in early, receive a diagnosis, and then have a continuous care pathway is crucial for these patients. Gord is now one of the 10 million people who have been subjectively diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and is only seen once a year for follow-up. Like many others, he also does not have access to a movement disorder specialist, meaning he receives less than optimal care for his disease progression. So we created a clinical decision support tool that we call PRIMS. It provides real-time motion capture assessments from within the clinic using existing hardware in a unique way with a software that we've created in-house. This software is able to analyze the motor symptoms of patients in real time to show comprehensive, accessible data and notifications for clinicians, patients, and generalists to improve their insights. We're able to show history, trends over time, and be alerted to any rapidly changing symptoms through our AI algorithms to red flag certain symptoms. Currently, we've had 40 patients utilize our system within a clinical setting, doing 44 assessments, and have great accuracy of 85% based on a small subset so far. We also decided to supplement this with weekly at-home surveys that patients can utilize. This is a self-management tool that they're able to see more insights into their disease and use better self-management tools between appointments. for them and their caregiver. The patient journey using PRIMS now shows consistent symptom monitoring for these patients, as well as accurate assessments in just under 11 minutes, and a continuous care and communication cycle for patients and caregivers. So what makes us different? Pregmaclin is able to capture more symptomology than our competitors and with more accuracy due to our 3D camera capture that is able to make us a viable competitor in the movement disorder market. Currently, right now, the current gold standard for practice is just a standard subjective approach from a neurologist assessment in office. We're currently building a presence in the US, the UK, and Canada right now with trial partners that we have. These trial partners will become paid users through procurement opportunities, scaling into private movement disorder clinics, and then down the road, pharmaceutical companies who are completing phase 3 clinical trials on new drug discovery. We also house the IP and the data within Pregmaclin to monetize on this database later on and provide more insights into this disease. Our business model is a B2B SaaS model with hardware built in on a per patient tiered subscription. We also are utilizing existing reimbursement and CPT codes within the US healthcare market to get to market faster. And we've currently been in the middle of completing our FDA regulatory strategy with our consultant in the US, and it is going incredibly well. We've also been able to leverage just over $2 million in non-dilutive government funding from the Government of Canada, Newfoundland, and other supporters, as well as through pitch competitions. That has also helped us to gain traction and support from incubators and accelerators across the globe, as well as other programming partners and research clinical trial access. The team consists of myself, my co-founder who has lived experience, and myself as a PhD pharmacology researcher in Parkinson's disease, leveraging the tech background and expertise, machine learning, and more that we've been able to bring into our team who is all passionate about the same vision and mission. We've also brought in internationally recognized advisors who are willing to help us bring this to scale and global across the market using expertise and personal experience, but have been able to secure key opinion leaders who say this will help to optimize their treatment strategies and provide better end-to-end care for their patients. So we hope that you'll be able to join us. We're seeking funders to help support our research and validation so we can be able to enter the market. If you know anybody or you're interested in talking, we hope that you'll reach out. Welcome to Pregmaclin, where the future of movement care starts at home. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bronwyn, for sharing. I love that Gord actually is your co-founder.
Yeah, I love it too.
Fantastic. Wonderful pitch, fascinating. And also what I was blown away by was also how much traction and progress you've already made internationally, Canada, US, UK. So congratulations. And I'd love if you could share a bit more around the status of some of those different clinical trials and the data you're collecting in each market.
Thank you. So we started off in Canada and then realized it was a little bit slower to move in the early stages of the trial work that we were doing. So we got some clinical traction in the UK with King's College, who helped us to build up our first protocol in the clinical setting and apply for a lot of funding grants. It helped us, though, to get traction in the US and Canada afterwards. So we did our first data collection clinical study with King's College, but it was in their hospital in Dubai. It went really well. That's how we got our assessment timing of 11 minutes, was through the usability that we did there and feasible in the clinic. And then we ended up getting partnerships in Canada. So we have one system set up in Ontario with a physio clinic and one as well in Newfoundland with another physio clinic who does Parkinson's assessments for their patients and has been super supportive of us since day one. And then with that work and the traction and key opinion leaders that we've had, we actually ended up in an incubator in the state of Maine in the US. And from there got a partnership with Maine Health and their healthcare system that has access to over 500 Parkinson's patients every year. And so we built up a protocol and are currently going through our IRB submissions with them, which is our pivotal study for the FDA submission.
Wow. Congrats. And I'd love to understand a bit more around how your solution compares to others. So for example, fully remote solutions and your thought process on the tech adoption piece in your solution.
Yeah, of course. Great question. The remote piece that we see that's different than our competitors is in the space that people know, which is wearables and apps on the phone, particularly. But when we did early customer discovery with neurologists, we found that a lot of them had the same pain point with adoption of those types of tech, which was that it provided almost an excess amount of data and was too hard for them to decipher through in a short appointment time, where they ended up needing to feel like they were giving more time to the appointment to focus on the data that came in from those wearables. The other piece that we see is a watch, for example, is only on one side of the body. And with Parkinson's disease, it's not Parkinson's if it's the same on both sides. So you're now having a wearable that is only tracking one half of the body, which could be completely different than the other half. And so you're not getting as much of an accurate assessment and also getting this excess of data from home, which may not actually be valuable for medication titration. So definitely one of the hardest pieces is adoption, and how this fits into clinical practice is incredibly important. And when we did our first usability study, that was one thing we really wanted the neurologists to be just completely blunt and honest about, is how they saw it fitting into their practice and what the hurdles that they thought we were going to have to jump through would be, so that we could face it on an earlier stage. And so with that, we ended up, wanting to do a what we call plug and play model, which was where we would, once the clinic decided adoption, we could then rearrange tests to fit their clinical order. So it actually works with their clinical flow, as opposed to being an impeding piece of their practice. So it's really that we wanted to build it around the current clinical settings, as opposed to something at home that the neurologist had to feel they needed to add into their current treatments.
Thank you. Super thorough. And I've talked with the other finalists about their IP strategy. So I'd love to understand how you're approaching that, especially as B2B SaaS.
Yeah, we were grateful to be one of the recipients of the Elevate IP program earlier this year. And that had been super helpful for us, because this program allowed us to be able to file trademarks in several countries, to be able to put in our patent. So we've now filed a provisional patent as well. We did our freedom to operate and everything that came along with that full package with that grant. And it's been super helpful in figuring out what our pathway forward would be and what markets we wanted to tackle, and allowing us a little bit of leverage in the next 12 months to file in other jurisdictions as we see fit. But with our provisional patent, we recognize that things can change, and we wanted to keep it in a way that we could solidify a competitive advantage in the market with our software without giving away what we consider, our secret sauce. So our IP strategy was really about using something that we could leverage not only for Parkinson's disease, but also for other diseases, as well as we scale into other movement disorders like MS, stroke, Huntington's, which all fall into the same movement category, and can utilize our algorithms to be able to assess those diseases as well.
Amazing. And completely agree. Elevate IP or Accelerate IP, such a fantastic program. If you're not aware of it already and you're working in the world of IP strategy, or whether at the starting point or filing, check it out. Quick plug for that. And also hats off for the 2 million that you've already sort of gathered and won in non-dilutive funding. You briefly mentioned other challenges, movement disorders that you could apply your technology and your approach to. So I'd love if you wouldn't mind going in a bit more detail about how you're thinking about that roadmap, and when is appropriate for you to then address another issue.
Great question. So every time that we talk to a neurologist, one of the questions in the conversations, even just in passing, is just well, hey, what's the second most common movement disorder you see in your clinic? And we get a lot of different responses. There's not really a continuous one across the board, but it has highlighted a few of the more popular or more common diseases, or the ones that neurologists really struggle with in the clinic to have these in-depth assessments of. And so in that, we ended up actually leveraging another funding program with the NRC, where we were having researchers at a local college do a deep dive on the differences in the scale for Huntington's, for example. And so we were able to cross compare how many tests were the same, how many tests were different, and what big of a lift it would really be for our tech team to then integrate that next disease scale. There's not that much of a difference. There's a few different tests, which makes it a nice, easy adoption for us. But I think for us as a company, our main focus really is on Parkinson's until we can get to the market and prove how useful of a tool it can be and the value and economic benefits it can have. And then I think at that point, it will be that we'll have it as a product offering addition to the Parkinson's side of it.
I love what a scalable, adaptable platform you're building.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat as well. So you mentioned just how you were collating data that would be useful analysis in future. Obviously, with that collection comes question around privacy and data security. So I'd love if you could speak to that.
Of course. So that was something that we took really early on, was how we would be able to protect our data and moving forward, especially as it became larger data sets, and whether we wanted to be the keeper of it, as mentioned, or if it would be that the healthcare providers would really want to keep that internally. I feel as though we've gotten mixed answers from depending on who we're talking to. Some areas do want to keep their own data, but honestly, I would say 80% to 90% of the people we talk to are willing to have the data be utilized and stored within our system, because it is not confidential data in the sense of keeping a whole bunch of healthcare records. And so we actually are able to export all of the, excuse me, the motor examinations, and they can upload them into their portal. We do house the data for the movement pieces that we do, but we haven't had any pushback on that. And then so for cybersecurity, we actually work with a company in Canada who does all of our cybersecure policies and updates, as well as penetration attacks for HIPAA and PIPEDA, as well as ISO. And so we've been working through that, which is an ongoing process always, but it's been a really interesting learning curve as well for the team to really understand and deep dive into that space and the difference just between cybersecurity, including patient data, and the mechanisms that we need to use and keep in place.
The multifaceted nature of healthcare startups.
Exactly.
And a question that I've also asked many of the finalists is around their approach to impact measurement. And so obviously you have multifaceted impacts and outcomes. And I'd love to understand how you're approaching that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons, I guess, and a quick backstory of when I started this, it was out of originally my PhD work where I met Gord, and we were originally planning to trial blueberries and how effective they were in protecting against the progression of Parkinson's disease. And the idea was to do a trial in the rural and remote areas of Newfoundland, where we came to the conclusion we would have no way to assess the patients in the rural areas. So we actually created the tech as a way to do the assessments for our blueberry trial, and then totally spun and went just to the tech side and dropped the blueberries. So eat your blueberries, they're really great for you. However, we now have this tech. And so I think one of the impact measurements is, I'm originally from Prince Edward Island, moved to Nova Scotia, and then moved to Newfoundland. And I'm very used to, the rural and remote settings of not having great access to healthcare sometimes. And so I think one of our impact measurements really is about how we can help communities that don't have that same piece of access. And a lot of our trial partners are not in the urban centers. So when everybody asked why we went to the state of Maine, it was because they struggle with the same problem of wait times. And so I'm sure you heard in the video, 4 years to see a neurologist is incredibly long, especially when you have a disease. And I sit on the Parkinson's board in Newfoundland, and it's a common problem. So I think we really measure impact by where we are able to gather our patients from and how we can impact the rural and remote communities to have that better access and feel as though they're being seen better.
Well, I really appreciate the fact you pivoted from blueberries, and congratulations on all your traction to date. Given we're at time, but I would love if you can answer offline the question that Ashma just popped into the chat, which is around your recent wins, so that we can all hear more about those. So thank you so much, and best of luck this evening, and we'll hear from you later. Take care. And next up, we're going to hear from Sumendra Singh of NeoCare.
Hi, do you remember the last time you went to an hospital and you saw an innocent baby smiling? Do you also remember the last time when you saw a newborn being needle pricked for blood collection? What a horrible scene, right? Did it ever cross your mind that, can I do something that can take the pain away from the baby? If yes, then we are here to cater for that moment of helplessness. Hello, my name is Sumendra, and I am the co-founder and CEO of NeoCare. And in NeoCare, we are developing painless solutions for disease diagnosis among the newborn. Motherhood is probably the happiest moment of a wannabe mother. But a lot of times, all of these moments of happiness are gone when the babies are born with certain diseases. Did you know that approximately 70% of the babies born globally are born with certain diseases, including anemia, jaundice, and hypoxia, which is the major cause of child mortality throughout the world? Now, WHO says that all of these deaths were actually preventable had there been constant monitoring. And when we say constant monitoring, what do we have? This is what we have. We take 4 ml of blood every 6 hours from the baby's body, and the blood is processed manually and is being taken to a distant laboratory for testing. So it is an extremely traumatic experience for not just the babies, but also the parents. There is a significant delay before the blood results can arrive, and there's a significant substantial dependence on costly laboratory equipment and trained personnel. In answer to all of these problems, we proudly introduce our flagship product called Samira. And in Samira, we shine a cool white light on the thumbnail of the baby, and the retroreflected light goes back into the equipment, and the equipment tells you 3 parameters of the body: hemoglobin, bilirubin, and oxygen saturation level. So in a nutshell, we provide painless, instantaneous, and stress-free solutions to not just the newborn, but also the parents for accurate determination of anemia, jaundice, and hypoxia. This comes in contrast to conventional methods involving multiple needle pricks, and all of this at a very affordable cost. Samira has been trialed over more than 1,500 patients in multiple hospitals and under expert pediatricians and healthcare providers. As you can see, there is an excellent correlation with the conventional blood test results, proving its accuracy under clinical settings. We have a very homogeneous team in NeoCare. With my 15 years of experience working with innovative technologies in biomedical instrumentation, I take care of engineering aspects of Samira. Professor Pal, who comes from Caltech from a Nobel-winning group, takes care of optics and spectroscopy, while Professor Malik, who is trained in Stanford University, takes care of the clinical aspects of NeoCare. From the regulatory classification point of view, it is a Class 2 device, both in USA and Canada. We have identified the predicate devices, which you can see is not one, but multiple actually. And we have also identified the indications of use. We did see from the predicate device identification that there is no existing device with these number of parameters that we are providing. It is accurate during phototherapy, which no other device is in the world. Of course, we have real-time quality control over acquired signals, and it is IoT and telemedicine enabled. We have identified a pay-per-test revenue model for the majority of our market, like the US. Based on the number of babies born and the number of babies needing blood tests, and not charging anything extra than what they are conventionally paying, NeoCare is overlooking at a total market size of 844 million and an obtainable market share of 236 million. The global market size is thus a substantial 709 million. In this round, we are seeking an investment of 750K, which will give us a runway of 2 years. We wish to raise this investment via SAFE or convertible notes at a valuation of $12 million. Before I conclude, I wish to draw your attention to another product which NeoCare will be very proud to introduce in near future. It is a device for the detection of urinary bladder cancer. We have published a very high impact factor journal, and we have the intellectual property for this. It is not the focus right now, but we will soon be launching this product, which is currently under trials. So dear investors, come join hands with NeoCare in our global mission to welcome each baby with love, happiness, and smiles, not pain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sumendra and NeoCare team. I know that I would have appreciated that as a baby with jaundice, and even some of our team members who've recently been through that sort of traumatic experience of very upset, ill babies at birth. So really, really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
I'd love to understand a bit more about your international growth strategy. And also, you know, to one of your last slides, you were sharing that this is no incremental cost. It's a lot more of a pleasant and immediate experience. So it's a no-brainer in a way. Tell me, what are your plans for route to market and any barriers to overcome on the way?
Absolutely, thank you. So what we plan to do right now is we plan to place this equipment free of cost to multiple hospitals and provide them free demos for at least 3 months to gain confidence that the values that they are obtaining is not different from what they are conventionally getting. And what we will do is they do not have to worry about capital investment towards the bulk purchase of the equipment. So the equipment is free for them, and we are only collecting per test based charge. Also, this is a choice to the parents because our customers are the babies, and baby cannot make a choice. So the parents will be given a choice of using the conventional test and also this test, which is painless and instantaneous. And we are confident that they will go for the painless test. Nobody wants their babies to be needle pricked and have a traumatic experience. And thus, slowly we will gain confidence from there, and we will slowly enter the market. So the demo customers will slowly become the paying customers, and from there we'll be going towards revenue.
And you mentioned originally some trials in India and then focusing in on the US. Where does Canada fit in your plans?
Right. So we do have different kind of revenue models for different countries, mainly in countries like US, China, India, where the patients or their private insurance is paying for their tests, where we will be going for a pay per test model. Canada have a public healthcare system, and normally we do not directly pay to the for these tests. So what we can do is we can go for a direct upfront or a hybrid model in which a part of the payment is being done upfront for the device and a part of being collected by the operating clinics. So Canada is a different market for this device. However, for majority of the bigger markets like US, China, India, they will be going for pay per test model.
Mm-hmm. Just encouraging everyone to put in your chats and questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. And in the meantime, Samendra, I'd love to understand about your IP strategy and where you're at with that at the moment.
Right. We have been fortunate to receive the support from Springboard IP Elevate. And we initially had a US provisional patent, and then now we are protected by PCT. While our IP strategy and everything is ready, we are ready to do some fundraising and directly apply for the full-fledged filing. So it's as of now it's PCT right now. We further are evaluating our other potential areas where we can file the patent, and then we can go for a full filing.
And great to hear that you've also had support with that. Great question from Christine around the device's use in rural and remote areas. It seems like this could be an absolute game changer in terms of infant mortality.
Actually, the device was initially developed back in 2009 when we were researching with the device. The place where I come from has very limited medical support in remote areas. Later on, I realized that this is not a problem limited to the geographical location. It's a global problem. A lot of areas do not still have expert medical support, and our vision was to provide them with the support that they actively need. What we did is the way we developed the device is it will require very little training or almost no training. It just has to be placed on the thumbnail, and the device's data is right there. Since it is IoT enabled, so all you have to do is to connect it to Wi-Fi, and the doctor sitting thousands of kilometers away can see the data and prescribe the medicine which we can get locally. So the way that we made the device is this can be used at any remote locations. No expert care, no training is at all required for this device. So this is one major area of impact that we wanted to make. And finally, like the way we designed it is like it can be used either in neonatal ICUs or remote areas, whichever.
Okay. Amazing, which I think starts to answer also the question around plan for maintenance. So once they've been deployed around the world or even just around the country, what's your plan for maintenance?
So the way the device has been designed is it hardly needs any maintenance because it is self-calibrates before every measurement. So each time you're going to measurement, it will do a little bit of homework, and then it will calibrate itself and then go for the reading. However, if there is any problem with the device the diagnostics of the device will tell you that this needs a little bit of calibration now, which is not frequent. So what they have to do is they have to ship it back to us, and we will take care of all that for free and then give it back to them. So they do not have to, the customers do not have to worry about purchasing of the device and the maintenance of the device. It always remains our responsibility all the time.
To know. And there's a question on the FDA's recently updated guidance on 510K applications. I'm not sure if this is best offline or whether you feel comfortable and happy to answer this right now. The updated guidance on the 510K applications, a secondary predicate is unlikely to be acceptable as a reference device. How will this affect your regulatory strategy?
This actually makes this actually makes our regulatory pathway kind of really easy, because the way we have we are planning to do the FDA submission is this device is to be used in conjunction to other clinical signs and other laboratory measurements. So this is a standard practice for other predicate devices, for example, other competitors who are giving single parameters, and we are extending it to multiple parameters, and we are making it useful in many other ways. So it actually makes our regulatory pathway kind of really easy. But if there's a very specific question around this, I'm happy to answer that offline.
Absolutely. Feel free once we finish to message more in the chat to clarify that. And your team clearly has a lot of deep technical expertise, and especially as you sort of just threw in there another incredible device that you've been working on at the very end of your presentation. Someone would love to understand a bit more about the business experience of your team.
To be very honest, we are new in the business. So business we are learning every day, and we are taking help of advisors and consultants around. So the things that we don't understand, we understand that we are a tech-heavy team, not really into too much of business, and this is our first medtech, venture. Now what we do is whenever we have some problems, we go back to consultants and advisors for help, and then we learn and come back to answer these questions. That's how we are going ahead. But in future, we have plans to have advisors who are more, concentrated or more focused towards the business side.
So maybe in addition to the raise that you're currently looking for, are you looking for any specific expertise to join on an advisory or board basis? Put the
That
pitch
will be perfect. That will be perfect. We can discuss.
And I suppose similarly, what are your longer term plans for sales and marketing and distribution routes, whether that's in-house or using third-party distributors?
So third-party distributors are always welcome, because they will understand the distribution backbone of a particular geographic locations better than us. So there are there are areas where we can do it ourselves, but of course we do not mind going ahead with third-party distributors who can, do better justice with the distribution thing. We are open to that.
And is there anything that you wanted to speak to before I say goodbye and good luck?
Yeah, so I hope everybody will find our device and us interesting, and I'm looking forward to more discussions with all of you in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and best of luck. Wonderful. And now we have Mimosa. So we have Dr. Karen Cross, who's CEO of Mimosa.
I'm Karen Cross. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mimosa Diagnostics. I am a plastic surgeon by training, as well as a PhD scientist, and this pitch today is my entire area of expertise. Skin injuries are not visible to the naked eye. Little Jack is a baby in the ICU. He's just had heart surgery, and he's about to lose his life because of an undetected skin injury. These are 40% of babies. Judy, middle-aged diabetic, she gets a diabetic foot ulcer, has an amputation, and a year later passes away. We have Frank, who's admitted to hospital, spends a lot of time in bed, ends up with a bed sore, and cannot go home and has to go to a long-term care facility. The standard of care in this space is a visual assessment, yet it's only accurate 20 to 30% of the time, and nothing has changed in the last 30 years. That's really until now with Mimosa. Mimosa makes the invisible visible. We look below the surface of the skin. We can see if the skin is healthy, and we can see that wound before it comes to the surface. Overall, This is quantitative technology. The doctors and nurses in real time can make treatment decisions. So what happens next in that therapeutic strategy? And I ask you right now, which one would you prefer? An assessment that's 20 to 30% accurate with a wait and see approach to see what happens, or quantitative technology that can tell you in real time what to do next? Overall, in order to make an impact in the system, or so in our healthcare system, it requires adoption. Adoption, then it's about understanding the value to all the stakeholders. So what is that value proposition for the physician, for the facility, and for the insurer or the payer? And Mimosa understands the value to all of the stakeholders, and we've designed the product to really enhance that value. We're building technology, not traditional devices. We make an impact across that care continuum, firstly, by being able to image all people. So it doesn't matter how much melanin you have in your skin, we can accurately measure that tissue oximetry. So this is the first time, and it's a best in class, being able to image people of color. And that's a very important part of what we do as a company. Not only that, you are 2 to 3 times more likely if you live in a rural or remote region to lose your leg. At Mimosa, we're bridging the gap between those urban centers and remote areas, so enabling patients to age well in their own community. We were recognized by the World Bank for our work in both creating this equity with melanin as well as in geographic access to care. We are scaling quickly as a company. We launched this growth and scale product in late October, early November of last year. It is an FDA Class 2 medical device. We're cleared as well as Health Canada approved with a US reimbursement code. At that launch, so within 4 months post-launch, we have a rapidly growing pipeline. We're working with 2 of the largest hyperbaric groups, so 1,300 clinics, and being written into their standard operating procedures. We've just closed one of the largest mobile wound care groups in the space and expect to close 3 more in the middle of April. We have major institutions adopting Mimosa, like the Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Mount Sinai, and Keck School of Medicine. And finally, major associations are driving Mimosa as the standard of care. This is both in Canada as well as the United States. Our commercial strategy is really, we're executing it right now. About 2 weeks ago, I told you we had commission-based sales reps. Now we have over 250 commission-based sales reps covering all 50 states. We have displaced our competitor with a major distributor, and we now also have targeting Veterans Affairs. We can sell into the VA and have our first trial starting next week. This year, we're expanding our distribution arrangements with key industry partners, and I'm about to tell you, we're about to sign a deal in April with one of the largest wound care companies. Overall, what does the future look like for us this year alone? Well, firstly, we have a projected 700% increase in sales that's about to happen, and then a projected 100% increase year over year. Our break even is anticipated in early of 2025, and we're on track to make that happen. We're structuring a partnership agreement with a big tech company, so a data company, for a co-sell and co-market agreement. As I said in my previous slide, we have a therapeutic strategic in the wound care space for which a distribution deal has been negotiated, and we're just waiting for signatures. And then finally, starting to work with a global medical device company that is a supply company to hospital system. Our projected growth on the R&D side, so this is with therapeutic companies who want to use Mimosa to prove their product is efficacious. We are projected to do almost $1 million in R&D deals this year. Overall, I already have $800,000 of that committed. Mimosa is actually growing quite quickly. We're very excited about the opportunity and grateful to Spring to be able to present to all of you today.
That is a huge amount of traction. Congratulations, Mimosa and team. And don't worry, this is not Craig in a different form. This is Dr. Karen Cross. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm at a conference and I was in a hallway and the Wi-Fi is just not working very well. So Craig is loaning me his computer and his room. So thank you. So yes, I'm not Craig. I'm Karen. I tried to.
Really appreciate you battling the Wi-Fi and the conference. Thank you for joining. And as I was saying, just huge congratulations, impressive traction around the world. And I personally am just so excited by how transformative this could be in rural and remote communities as well as mainstream. So actually I have a question that picked up on another one that was asked around device lifespan maintenance in some very challenging environments, and how you're thinking about that in order to reach some of the more rural, remote areas.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, we were at a talk this morning. We're at an investor conference. It's the largest device investor conference in North America. And this morning's talk was about bringing technology to Africa. And so just to highlight to this group, when we started this company, it was truly about bringing these technologies into the rural and remote places like in Africa. So the one thing we've done with the technology is first make sure that you can use it without Wi-Fi. So it has to be non-Wi-Fi enabled. You can take the images without connectivity. We have some other things we can do to help with that connectivity, but that part, being really important. The second piece is durability. So that capacity, someone's going to drop it. I mean, we're healthcare workers. They can go in toilets. So we do have warranty plans as it relates to it, but there's other features that are coming this year. We can put protectors around the technology. We have drop tested it. So we know it has durability as well within the system. So I'm not sure if that's what you were getting at in terms of the question, but.
Yeah, absolutely. A past life, I was in more of the hardware field and South Africa as well. So really understand the challenging environment you're working in.
Yeah. And we have sleeves that go over it to protect the screen, like how it's clean. So we've done a lot of R&D around the product, and we put this in the space for about a year, 18 months prior to see how people handled it and how rough it was in order to inform what you see here before we truly invested in the manufacturing efficiency.
Yeah. Love it. The extra added complexity of software and hardware combined. So I'd love to understand, if that's not a challenge, you've tackled that one. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing and how you're going about doing that?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is really it's hardware and software, just as you mentioned. So like all healthcare companies, especially with their software, it's cybersecurity. So I think, one of the greatest challenges we have is really making sure I think that the software is compliant. And the first person we hired in the company actually was a cybersecurity expert. So we actually poached him from the president of the United States. He was working for Barack Obama, encrypting BlackBerry signals between the Secret Service. And so we realized that as a company, the most important thing we have is our data asset. And that is definitely challenging. So it's challenging in all healthcare sectors. So we're putting a lot of focus and attention on cybersecurity. I would say the other challenge we face with new technology in this space is always with adoption. So we call ourselves an agile. That's why we're not a device company, we're a tech company. So we take a lot of feedback from our customers. We work very closely with the customers. As we gain that feedback, we're changing the software, we're adding those features and really prioritizing the customer experience. So this year really focused on customer success, right? Having that white glove service, being the Apple of medical devices. So we want to build that brand and maintain our brand this year.
Fantastic. And you definitely touch upon it in your video, but I'd love to understand a bit more about your business model and revenue pathways, especially as you now bring in data as also a huge asset that you're building.
Yeah, and the business model right now is either you can purchase this as a capital expenditure plus a monthly subscription, or it can be a full leasing model. So we can go between what we would call an operating budget and a capital expenditure. We have our price point, for the US marketplace as well as the Canadian marketplace with discounts at scale. So, above 20 units, there's a discount, related to that. As we start sort of thinking about the data, at this point, we do have probably the largest standard image capture data bank of skin injuries of anywhere in the world. So we did try to do machine learning on sort of other types of data banks, but it was almost impossible because if someone takes a picture and you say, take a picture of the hand or an image of the hand, they'll do this, another person does this, and you can't actually possibly perform any kind of AI on that kind of data bank. So our data banks become quite valuable because it is the same image each time. Not only that, it's annotated data, so we know what happened to the patient. So now we have outcomes tied to data, and the data asset actually has become quite valuable to insurance companies, government agencies. So I'm not really answering your question or what we're going to do about the data or what's the financial incentive for the data, but maybe stay tuned because we have some ideas and we're kind of working through our data asset, but our value truly is in this back end as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and how unique that is as well.
And I think that Caroline, sorry, I should have said, as well as a diverse data set. So when we look at these data sets, they're mainly Caucasian skin. So there's no diverse data set. So how can you actually improve technology if you're not, if you don't have data sets that have all people in it? To at a group like Google. So Google, we use a Google Pixel inside the phone. There were 2 billion individual searches for skin injury last year. So skin injury is very important to data companies in that sector.
And how are you thinking about measuring your impact, especially as you're sort of in the middle part of the process? What is your strategy?
Well, I think there's some people here who maybe are hearing about Mimosa for the first time. The story I'd like to tell you is I lost my family member in rural Newfoundland to an undetected skin injury. He had an amputation and he died. And most people don't know that about my story. So the first reason for me stepping out of my career as a plastic surgeon, my lab, my private practice, sold it all and said, listen, we're going to go solve this problem. And who better to solve it than someone who understands the system? So impact, I think, is probably really in my DNA. You know, we want to make this impact, and there's certainly a fire in the belly. The first way we've done it is in the melanin algorithms. So making this equitable technology. We can see month over month how those algorithms are improving and how much more accurate the product is. So that's one way we can quantitatively measure, are we doing a good job? The second way is in the back-end data. Are we imaging more people of color? So is that a diverse, you know, what's the diversity in the data set? And then finally, we can measure in location. So where are these imagings being acquired? And are we bridging a gap? So for example, in New Brunswick, during COVID, we were able to save the limbs of 366 patients in rural areas. And so that was a big win for the company. I think overall, you know, we're working with associations in the US, mainly with like Black patients who are trying to advocate for more technology in the space. So really this year, just trying to leverage more opportunity to collaborate with some of those stakeholders. So just starting to develop those relationships now.
That is incredible. And yeah, huge respect and admiration for your ability to save lives in those especially tough times during COVID, where everything else was deprioritized. So I think it's probably useful if you could recap also the amount you're raising, what you're looking for from investors, whether there's been any change since you recorded that video, and also if there's more than money that you're looking for as well.
Yeah, so there's 2 things we're looking for. We're looking about $3 million US. This is all for commercial operations, really expanding of that customer success team. We're actually growing faster than we thought, so some manufacturing capacity, so we need some more inventory. And clearly a few more salespeople to manage the volumes. The round itself, again, as I mentioned, it's $3 million. We have almost $2 million committed now. We have $1 million left in the round. We've had some commitments just in the last couple of days of being here in California. So yes, investors, please, we want to complete this round so we can get on with the sales, close these deals, and really change the world. The second is with strategics. So strategics being, you know, if you have connections into hospital systems, or maybe there's a physician here who would be interested in helping us gain access either in the Canadian system or the US system, a customer, and then larger strategics. So looking to those partnerships, our business model is to form partnerships with therapeutics. So 3 asks of the group that's here.
Fantastic. And congratulations on the progress so far in your round, and best of luck this evening. Now we'll be going on to the investor deliberation. So investors in the cohort, it's time, if you haven't left already. You have a separate room where you'll be deliberating and making your decision. Yeah, as Selena mentions in the chat, congratulations. Those were some incredible pitches and really, really insightful questions and answers. So really appreciate your time on those. And if you're not in the program, we have, as in if you're not an investor that's just gone off for the deliberations, please vote using the People's Choice poll that will be shared in the chat. This is your opportunity to have a voice as to which you would be voting or investing in if you were a part of this program, or even after the fact. You are very, very welcome to be in touch and find out more about how you can support each of these incredible founders and ventures. So next, I am really excited to introduce 2 inspiring leaders in early stage healthcare investing across Canada. Brenda Irwin from Relentless Ventures, and we have Luke as well joining us from Halo Health shortly. So, hi Brenda, how are you doing?
Hi, Caroline. Good. Luke's here. He had come in a few minutes ago as well, so I think it's just the link navigation. There he is.
Hi, Luke. First of all, I'd actually really welcome each of you to introduce yourselves and what you do in your own words, rather than me putting words in your mouth. So Brenda, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off and sharing more about yourself, your mission, and your activities at Relentless.
Sure, great, thank you. Well, it's a privilege to be here today and to be part of the closing of the program that Spring's been holding, focusing on health tech innovation. I've been a health investor for 25 years. I just reached that milestone in January. I started out in biotech, so primarily early stage drug development investing when I was at BDC, part of the life sciences team there. And then most recently, 6 years ago, started the Relentless Venture Fund. And it is a fund that I founded based on what I saw were gaps in the health investing ecosystem, primarily on chronic disease management and prevention. The areas that we've started with Fund One include diabetes, heart disease, mobility, and mental well-being, which are also common comorbidities and also some of the most common chronic conditions that develop as we age that we can often do something about, thus the link of prevention with the chronic disease. I've been primarily early stage investor, seed, Series A. I have experience investing in public companies as well. We are working on building and raising our second fund. We will continue what we started. We think there's high impact in many areas, including improving remote access, which was discussed earlier with some of the companies. We see remote care being specific to rural and difficult to reach locations, but also increasing access for seniors. So you will hear a lot about what we do and the commitment to seniors' health and healthcare. And I would say that another part of my experience and background, I'm involved in a number of different programs, and one area that I'm currently the chair of the National Digital Supercluster, formerly Supercluster, now Digital, of their AI commercialization program, as well as on their tech leadership program. And that's really brought a lot of interesting perspective on innovation in Canada that may or may not touch on today during this chat.
Fantastic, thank you. And I would love to touch on as many of those areas as we have time for. Looking forward to digging in a minute. And Luke Sheen, we'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words as well.
Thanks, Dawn. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you, Brenda. My name is Luke Sheen. I'm the Executive Director at Halo Health. In short, we are Canada's physician angel investment group that is composed of a little over 400 physicians. And because of that reason, we exclusively invest in healthcare startups ranging from pre-seed to Series A. We will not discriminate within sub-verticals of healthcare startups. So we've invested in companies ranging all the way from pharmaceutical to device to digital health. And it's always good seeing one of our portfolio companies present with Spring, that being Mimosa, of course, founded by Dr. Karen Cross, whom we absolutely adore and is a tremendous founder. Besides our investment activities, we also provide a specialty match physician advisory program to any healthcare startups, even in the earliest of stages, that would like to talk to a specific physician of their choice. And we deliver that program at no cost with government partners such as the National Research Council. I myself also spend quite a bit of time doing pro bono work with H2I at U of T School of Medicine, as well as Plug and Play down in California, as well as University of Calgary and USEED funds. So I always welcome any connections and any questions, and happy to provide advisory for any healthcare startup founders or any in the ecosystem. So happy to be here, and love to give you back the stage, Carolyn.
Thank you, and cue the flood of requests for mentorship and Q&A from you. Well, so I'm just putting myself in the shoes of the investors that have gone off to the other room and have been through this program. Some of them are completely new to angel investing, and some are experienced, but maybe just learning and deepening their knowledge of early stage healthcare investing. And they're also really trying to understand the specific nuance of what it means to be an early stage healthcare investor, which, as we've heard, has multiple layers, additional questions and complexities than other industries. So I would definitely love to spend a bit of time digging into that in a moment. And really getting ourselves, as I say, in the mindset of these investors who are going to be asking different questions and be evaluating the companies along different lines. So what are the top factors that both of you look at when evaluating early stage ventures, such as the top 5 that have just presented? And especially, what's the same and what's different for a healthcare startup? I don't know if either of you want to jump in first.
What's the same? And I'll just start with what I look for. So I think one of the great opportunities, but also one of the trickiest things for new investors, particularly to get their experience with, is ensuring that the companies that they're making investments in are solving real problems in care, and also coupled to that is ensuring that whatever the technology is, that the founders and the management team of these early stage companies, where angels are showing up most often is the earlier stages, that the founders have done their work and ensuring it's a product and technology that either the patient or the clinician actually will use. So in terms of workflow, shows up often. I've had a ton of examples over the years, particularly in early stage digital health, where innovations were being presented and it was clear that the entrepreneurs hadn't done enough customer discovery work. And a lot of us make decisions based on our own personal experience, like Karen was mentioning what her personal inspiration was for developing Mimosa. Many of us have our own experiences in health and different conditions as well that may drive our passionate interest for a technology or an opportunity, but may not necessarily be a practical fit in terms of care and implementing in the care practice. I'll pause there. Those are a couple that stand out the most for me.
Yeah, those are really great points. 100% agreed. Being early stage investors, I would say founder is definitely who we're betting on. I think literature still dictates that companies that do end up exiting on average pivot 2.7 times until their exit. So we look at the founder to see, 1, do they have the expertise? 2, are they a well-rounded team? And 3, do they have that rigor to pivot with market demand? And as they go through product market fit, build new products that suits the company. So founder in those aspects are important. I would say a second point that we look for, especially in healthcare startup, is the buyer-payer relationship. Obviously, we do what we do here, given that all of our investors are physicians, because we want to help people. We want to help people feel better. But unfortunately, we live in a society where you have to pay for services. So I think what distinguishes a very worthwhile lab product or a product that may have come from research and a venture is the fact that venture charges for their services and has built a product that has enough value that the public will pay for it. So I think that distinction of navigating the buyer-payer relationship and understanding whether or not the product can monetize and whether or not there's a reimbursement pathway so that eventually it does what it's supposed to do, that it can actually get in the hands of physicians or healthcare practitioners, and it is actually affordable or reimbursable by the patient, so that the vision of the company comes into full fruition. I think those two major points are extremely important.
Mm-hmm. And I love the overlaps in what you were saying. You know, ultimately it links to that journey mapping. Do they have a really robust and intimate understanding of how is the end user going to use it? And not just stop there, but how are they then going to be able to access it? And then those people deploying it, how are they going to be adopting it into their daily life seamlessly? What are they currently using? What are the barriers to change? And Luke, to your point around founder, well-rounded team, that speaks to not just someone who is able to innovate on the technology side, but also a team member or the same person who really can live and breathe that commercial sense of what is that route to market. Yeah, really, really love what both of you are saying there. I think I have a question, especially with my previous startup hat on, which is, have you seen people do this in a lean way, especially in healthcare, where immediately you're faced with data questions or regulatory environment, which makes it extremely costly? Can this be done in a lean way? Have you seen any ways in which it is done? Yeah, Luke.
That's a really good question. So I think, you know, at the earliest stages of any startup, I think burn really goes towards human capital. And I think this is where angels with specific knowledge and expertise comes in extremely handy. And in the industry, people call that smart money. So if it is the case that you have an angel investor who's interested in you, who happens to have served as a regulatory compliance expert for the last 10 years, that's a very good way to run it lean, where you may not have to afford expensive external consultants, but depend on your investors who trust you and leverage their intelligence and their knowledge to fix the problem. And certainly in our startups, given the fact that we like to specialty match, we've seen founders do that, where instead of reaching out to random physicians or going through third-party services that may charge exorbitant consulting fees, they reach out to our physicians who already invested and believe in the founder, and freely have that advisory session where they ask specific questions where that type of angel with their expertise can only answer, and also get it free. So I think that way of shifting the human capital need and really allocating your funding wisely, leveraging investors is a good start. There's other ways to do this, but I'd love to pass it on to Brenda to get her thoughts on this matter as well.
Oh, the one thing that I'll build on, Luke, around accessing your existing investors for their expertise really is important to understand who the people are that are coming to the table. It's not always going to be obvious what their contributions will be. Yes, more so for physician clinicians for certain, but another thing is to identify really strong individuals as independent directors. And a signal to me with earlier stage companies is, who have you been able to attract around the board? And I know there's all kinds of opinions about when a board should be created, but in my experience, it has been one of the most efficient and low cost ways to access truly engaged experience that you could never afford. I would say that you would be surprised at how lean. I'll give an example, just to give you an example without total numbers, but a company like Aspect, who people will know from the West Coast at least, you know, 3D printing, multi-billion-dollar partnership last year announced with Novo. You would be stunned at how efficient they were in their dilutive fundraising, their equity fundraising. What they had done for years, and this is where it's very common in health, there are so many programs to access non-dilutive capital, particularly in the form of grants and reimbursement, that to me actually links back to the first question, the hustle factor. It is far more compelling to see significant experience and success in securing non-dilutive capital The order of magnitude with Aspect is like mind blowing. And then the other area I would say in terms of efficiencies versus not, is you are not going to be very capital efficient in new drug development and medical devices unless there's new ways that you brought in new technology, where this is the first time I'll mention AI, where it really is helping solve some of the preclinical cost and timelines in drug development. And there's just certain expenses you can't bypass, but some of the other technologies are creating new efficiencies, which is fantastic. But you can't skip the phases. And that is in part why digital health for some groups, we do have digital health. We're not exclusively digital in the Relentless Fund. It's just a different cost structure when it's primarily software. However, AI engineers, software engineers, very, very expensive.
Yeah, on that note, Brenda, you made such a good comment. It gave me an idea, which is that, we're lucky to live in Canada, and Canada has definitely shifted its focus on granting programs for healthcare startups. So for example, NRC has an IP grant that allows startups to subsidize sometimes 100% legal costs. So I would certainly spend my time as a founder to exhaust my resources to Google and find all the grants you can find, both provincially, municipality-wise, as well as federally. And you'll be surprised how much of those initial costs that you incur can be subsidized by government grants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is truly amazing being here and comparing versus other countries. Like Canada has a huge amount of support for non-dilutive funding. And I was also thinking as you were chatting, especially around networks, investors, directors, just recognizing that actually the inequality and inaccessibility for some people in terms of underrepresented founders may not have access to that network, or maybe coming into the country for the first time and building that from scratch. And so I think both the grants ecosystem, getting up to speed with that pretty quickly, but also programs like these. It wasn't intended as a main plug, but I was just really thinking about how do underrepresented founders get access to experts, advisors, supporters, and champions in the ecosystem. Is there anything else that comes to mind for either of you in terms of leveling the playing field a little bit more?
I mean, it's said all the time. I mean, you can never overstate the power of networking. And many of us, we have complicated busy professional lives, and don't always want to make that drive or get to that in-person event, but you never know where that next connection or ally or advocate is going to come from. So I would say the in-person connecting as much as possible. I mean, I went to a Vancouver Board of Trade luncheon last week. It was the first time in over a decade I'd been to one, and it was a reminder to me, the diversity, even though it was a health-focused event, the diversity of people that would show up at an event like that I had not seen, and reconnections I made that aren't necessarily always in the emerging health tech ecosystem. So it's what I say to students as well all the time, as well as the new entrepreneurs and underrepresented founders that may not have similar experiences, or particularly if new to Canada. There's not much that replaces that in-person experience. And
well said. Yeah, I would say just send them to us. I mean, myself being a startup founder in my past life, I can attest how hard that can be. But that's exactly why we built Halo Health the way that we built it, purpose-driven, knowing what the difficulties are for the founder. So for example, through our advisory program, we will find and appoint the most appropriate physician. And because our people are self-selected, they are all very busy clinicians, but they are here because they want to genuinely help. So quite often, even with that fully subsidized advisory programs, those matched founder and physicians will go offline and end up working together and even end up becoming a board member or a medical advisor. So certainly we welcome that opportunity all the time. And even on an ad hoc basis, we certainly welcome where you just can't find that one doc and you really have a good idea of who you need, then we also provide that program where we'll find the willing and provide that opportunity and connection so that they can go do great things together.
Yeah, you do have a very valuable and unique model in the ecosystem. So we've talked a bit about the entrepreneurs and how they can build, test, and iterate in a lean way. I'd also love to understand and chat a bit more around the investor side of things. So part of this program is to catalyze more early stage investment into healthcare, and especially in the Atlantic region. And as we know, healthcare has added complexities. So I'd love to understand, not just focusing on the barriers and risks, but touching on them briefly in terms of what needs to be overcome for us to be able to build a larger and more active community of early stage healthcare investors.
Luke, I'll let you take this one first.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, we run a lot of data and insights internally here at Halo Health. And what we're seeing in Canada increasingly is that institutional investors, even those who used to do early stage, are actually going late stage now. And that's becoming a trend. So what I would say is emphasize how important an angel investor can be. Because if we really break down the growth of a startup, without angel investors who may be around the table even here today, a great idea, a great product that can one day save their own life or their mother's or their father's lives would have halted. And that's just criminal. So that is with understanding that it is high risk. So we never dissuade our people in fully disclosing that this is a startup investment. This is literally the case of high risk, high reward. But again, pointing back to the idea of smart money, of people who really know their stuff because they are experts, and they see that startup where they understand it, and they can see that they can add value by advising them. I think those people are much more needed. So I think as an ecosystem as a whole, we have professional investors like Brenda and our team who's been doing this for decades, but I think there is a need to empower angel investors when there is that fit, where they know their stuff, they know this industry, they have the expertise, and they feel comfortable because of that fact. I would never advocate for investing blindly in a high risk asset. But if there's that fit, I think as an ecosystem as a whole, we need to encourage that and we need to empower those folks. And case in point is how our docs, they'll come in saying, look, I'm a doctor, I'm not a finance person. But then within the first 15 minutes, they look at the technology and they say, I understand this. I can validate this as a problem. I would love to have them in my clinic because I can see this will help my patients immediately. And just taking that bold risk and getting involved could not only help them as an investor, but really launch our Canadian ecosystem to the stratosphere and help these startup founders that could have not gone to the next level, but only because angel investors exist, allow them to grow so that they can get the capital from later stage investors who are also there to support them in different ways. Mm-hmm. So that's my viewpoint on the importance of angel investors and how I think we should encourage them. Brenda?
To invite some healthy debate about the extent to which these angels need to be doctors, need to have that technical experience versus collaborate and learn from those as part of the due diligence process.
Yes, where I want to go is around the asset class. So angel investing by definition doesn't mean high risk. It means the stage. So a lot of people are used to, I've been a VC, I guess I spent a few years as an angel between BDC and Relentless. But there are many health focused investment opportunities that don't have the risk profile or the growth profile that is a path towards the venture funding needs, or like either amount of capital, timing, starting position. It's hard. I was trying to think of pulling one off the top that this would fit with. I would just say that because I've seen so much over so many years in different scenarios, there are often opportunities in health investing where the private individual, the angel, the family office, along with non-dilutive funding, can get the company to a commercial phase. Those will generally have less technology risk. So I'm a tech investor. Not all health investing is always technology based. And I think that that's important to keep in mind. I know I had shared with Caroline before that investing in health is hard. Like it's hard, full stop. It's you are generally the super majority of the investments that you are making have a direct impact on the health and well-being and life of individuals. But there are all kinds of ecosystem plays as well that are supportive and will have an impact structurally, but not necessarily directly on the patient. So I think getting more angel investors in health, which was the opening, Caroline, right, is come up with your own matrix. It's kind of like a skills matrix I would do when I'm assessing a board. What are the things that you know you're comfortable with, you're expert with, your connections have? You could have very close friends that are connected in different parts of the health ecosystem. And what are the areas that you would depend entirely on others for? Start in an area that you have some comfort or familiarity with. That's always the first piece of advice. That's the punchline. Start somewhere where you either have some direct line of advocacy. One of the LPs in my fund was on did not come from the health background, came from a tech background, but was on the board of Heart and Stroke Foundation. So that was a very interesting fit for a fund that is investing in cardiac care and heart health, right? But there was no direct technology experience or educational background. So it's doing that personal skills matrix and interest matrix and making sure I want everybody to have a positive experience as an investor. And so figure out what you're most comfortable with to get started if you're new.
Amazing. And I suppose the entrepreneurs will be doing the same. What's that matrix that they need on their board? What type of investors that they want to take on? Who are values aligned? Because of time, I'd like to ask a final question. And we actually touched upon it a bit the other day, which was around returns and exit potential. Luke, I know you had some thoughts and also latest data in terms of how are investors thinking about this? What are the current trends with healthcare returns and exits?
Yeah, I think it's quite commonplace for a great investor to say, invest when the market's down, because you get to invest in a company when the valuation is down. And we compiled our data from last year, of which we saw a little over 200 deals. And, our data shows that the healthcare startup valuation bubble kind of burst early part of last year. So that was when it was literally at the lowest. So obviously when you invest low, right, like the stocks, you buy low, you sell high. So you have a greater chance of achieving a greater return just based on the valuation itself. Of course, there's plenty of other variables. And we're seeing an upswing. We're seeing an upswing in a couple ways. One is that the valuations are going back up. However, that indicates that in supply and demand and free market economy, there is demand for these assets. And that's why the valuations are going up. However, it has not reached that all-time high when the bubble burst, which indicates for investors at this current juncture that there is still time. There is still time to invest in a company at a reasonable valuation before it goes sky high again. So, I'm trying to be always optimistic. I think that's a requirement in the startup community. So, I would say overall, just based on that data, there's hope. XBI is a great index to track. It tracks all the biotech companies in the capital markets, S&P 500 companies, and that index is also going up, which means that there is demand for this asset class, that there is sales and trading and M&A activity that's ramping up, which translates to earlier assets to exit and get acquired. So I'm pretty optimistic in where the market is going in our sector. And I would say that this is a good time to get in and invest in a healthcare startup, especially early stage. Brenda?
So I'll take this from a different angle. When you're making an investment as an angel investor, and I've begged organizations literally begged organizations and people who run angel networks to have conversations with the later stage investors, if it's seed and A versus pre-seed investors, about the investments they're making, where the valuations are being set by founders. I mean, it's probably one of the most uncomfortable experiences when going into new deals. Unfortunately, it's also part of why some VCs get bad raps, because the perception is there's joy in going down and grinding earlier investors. It's not the case. I promise you it is because the valuation wasn't set at the right spot in the first place. And when I say the right spot, I mean the market spot, not mine versus theirs. And I'm still amazed at how many companies, and in this world of safes, if you've heard me speak before, I don't like safes, but I won't go on my safe rant, except to say there is an artificial perception of what the value is just because of what a cap is. And it creates a very inconsistent conversation with follow-on financings. But if I could just, encourage anybody who is on here, either as an entrepreneur or as an angel investor, to ensure they know what the lifetime capital is most likely to be for the company you're making a very early stage investment in. And second, really understand the market and the competitive ecosystem and where the metrics are. And it's not just what's the Valley average, it's what's happening in the Canadian ecosystem for a company in this space at this stage that's raised this much money. There's pretty good consistent numbers, and entrepreneurs will not like this, but there are also rules of thumb where going in early, there's a 60-40, like however much is being raised versus what the ownership position is. There's many approaches to valuing early stage deals, but in terms of the opportunity for returns being higher is making sure that when you make your first investment, the valuation has rigor around it.
I really appreciate your differing and complementary perspectives.
Yeah.
And we're already at time, which just feels like you've just teased us with your incredible insights and knowledge. And so everybody now needs to reach out to you on LinkedIn, connect with you, have a coffee, and learn more, because I really, really appreciate all your insights and wisdom. And as I say, different perspectives and experiences of this early stage investing ecosystem. So thank you for the incredible work that you're doing as well, and partnership support along the way. And really appreciate your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. I love being a health investor, and I love sharing about it.
Awesome.
Yes, and certainly welcome any introductions or reach outs. Happy to have a chat.
I'm sure you both will have many now. Right. I'm going to share as investors come back into the room, and you're welcome to turn off your cameras now, and we will share a bit more about a teaser of upcoming programs as the investors come back into the room. And then we'll hear the announcement, or I will announce, actually, that'll be me, People's Choice, and then the winner. So if this conversation, these pitches have led you feeling like you want to get involved in more, or even for the first time, angel investing, we have an upcoming challenge that is in support of fantastic women-led ventures that is a national level, and that's kicking off in April. So we're currently recruiting for investors who want to join that. And then we do also have the Spring Collective, which is an angel network that reviews deals like these and incredible founders like the ones that you've heard from on a monthly basis. So we'll obviously share more about that in the chat. But let's get to the exciting bit, which is first the People's Choice Award. Drum roll. Mimosa, congratulations. You have been voted by the people for your incredible work and traction to date. And then secondly, we'll hear who is the winner. Now, by winner, I mean who has been selected by the investors for their investment this evening. And the reality is that, as you saw, there are some incredible innovations and founders, and each of them will have built lasting relationships. And I'm looking forward to the future ways in which we can support all of the founders. But in the meantime, who is being invested in this evening? It is Mimosa as well. Congratulations. So whilst their team get on stage again, as I mentioned, all five will benefit from continued support from Spring and the partners involved here today. And I'm looking forward to hearing more. So congratulations. Well done. Really, the floor is yours. This is my time to be silent and to hear your reaction and how you're feeling.
I feel actually emotional about this investment. And the reason being is, what our mission and vision is for the company, and knowing that this is an impact investment, and it's validating that what we're doing for society, what we're doing globally is changing the game. But it's actually the first time that we've been recognized for this work on the investment side. So by impact investors and that chance to create the visibility for that equity we're creating in the healthcare system. So for me, actually, I feel emotional. I feel a little bit teary about all of that. It's been an incredible journey. I actually want to give a big thank you to our DD team. They asked questions that honestly, we've never been asked before, thoughtful questions. And it's through those questions that have helped even inform some of the software development and also some of the product development and how we sell. So just really wanted to acknowledge that experience for us was really tremendous week over week. And also thank you for putting up with my travel schedule, but really grateful. And the second thing is just really to acknowledge the other companies. This is really hard. It takes a lot of resilience. And I also wanted to honor everyone who got to this point, and it's been grateful. I'm grateful to know you, and let's continue also to help each other. So thank you so much. And thank you to Spring and everybody who's helped us along the way for your support.
Just huge congratulations. It's testament to, as we were chatting in the fireside chat just then, like your incredible leadership of this company, as well as how much you've really thought about the multifaceted and multi-layered nature of the issue that you're tackling, both the end user, but also how is it actually going to reach that end user effectively. So we look forward to this investment being catalytic in your round, and also welcome everyone here this evening, or spreading the word that this round is still open. So there is still time to support Mimosa and the incredible Dr. Karen Cross. So thank you so much. Obviously, you'll be around for a bit longer if people want to contact you in the chat. Otherwise, please do feel free to share all the relevant links where people can find you and support you. Huge congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. And as I mentioned, so there is still an opportunity for anyone in the room who is wanting to support and invest in Mimosa. Get in touch with us. There's room in the SPV and their 3 million round. And as you know, that there's strong traction to date, but also due diligence that's just been done by the incredible team of investors and also their coaches along the way. And that's open to both accredited and non-accredited investors. And that speaks to our passion and the model that we're using here to really trying to get more people involved in impact investing, angel investing, by making it accessible to non-accredited investors as well. So if that's you, please also get in touch. You hopefully will see a survey that's popped up, and we would love to get your feedback. Obviously, we're always iterating and improving in an entrepreneurial way, and want to hear how this evening was for you, how we can improve it for the next events that you'll be attending, we hope. So whilst you're doing that, please think beyond financial capital. You know, a lot of the founders here this evening and their teams have mentioned how they could benefit from expertise, whether that is on the commercial side of things, on the technical side of things, finance and accounting. I'm sure they would all welcome introductions, and also about thinking about your social and cultural capital. Is this something that you yourself could be a user of or could share with potential customers? And really excited to just be catalyzing this early stage investor ecosystem. So there might be friends of yours who might also want to join in on their rounds. And that's not just for MOSA, but also for all of the founders here this evening. So I want to say a final thank you to everyone involved behind the scenes and the partners, and a special hats off to Program Manager Vanessa and Selena for support throughout the program. Natalie, Ashma, you have a whole team of people involved behind the scenes. So really, really appreciate your incredible work to make this happen. And assuming that all of you have had a chance to fill out the poll, many thanks and have a wonderful evening wherever you are.